heard this before, the hustle mantra. No days off, grind 24/7 if you want to be the absolute best in your craft. You see this all over social media. I'm talking about the influencers, the athletes, the coaches. They're all saying the same thing. But what if I told you that this could be either the worst advice that you ever hear, or it could be the best advice you ever hear? I'm talking about absolute dangerous advice, or advice that could set you up for a lifetime of success in whatever it is that you want to do. Here's the truth. The problem with these coaches, these athletes, these influencers, they're on either end of the spectrum. They're all either way too aggressive or they're just way too soft. But what they don't acknowledge is that there's nuance to what they're saying. They don't acknowledge the gray area in the advice that they're giving. In this video, let's talk about why grinding 24/7 can either make you or it can break you. First, let's talk about the myth of the constant hustle. This concept of grinding 24/7, at least in terms of sports, this is not new at all. This has always been used as a psychological tactic to intimidate other opponents. I know you've heard athletes or teams or coaches say, our team will outwork yours any day, or you could never work harder than me. You know, everyone wants to show off this never stop mentality because in a way it can sound inspiring. You know what I mean? It's like the ultimate flex, you know, I outwork everyone. But this is the catch. This is all fake. I mean, don't get me wrong. If you want to be the absolute best at whatever it is that you're trying to do, you're going to have to be willing to lock in and obsess. There's way too much to learn, to get a handle on, for you to just kind of go through the motion. You have to be very, very engaged, intensely engaged. And this is not news to anybody that's a high performer. All these high performers, they know this. But it's the young, immature, developing competitors that they don't really understand the nuance in all this. Usually if you hear these guys saying this, it's because they have their own insecurities and they're just really not mentally dialed in. These young, immature competitors, they'll tell people how hard they work and things like that just to get that hit of dopamine, and they'll use that for motivation to go work harder and, you know, go train. But they realize that what they're doing is just setting off that dopamine response. So yeah, it does work, but what you don't see with these younger, immature, developing athletes is that they're going through injuries. They're battling burnout constantly, and they're not even thinking about the opportunities they're missing for recovery. It's like what they're trying to show you is just their highlight reel. But then you look at the best competitors that you can think of. They don't need to tell you that they work harder than you because they already know they do. And these top performing competitors, what separates them from the younger, immature type is they're still grinding 24/7, but they're doing it in an intelligent way. I'm talking about recovery, rest, nutrition. They're doing all of these things that these younger, immature athletes don't even think about. They are so aware of all of these components that go together to help them perform. They know what they need to do in terms of being successful for the long term, to create longevity. So they are not in the least bit concerned about what their competition is doing. They know that in the back of their mind, every single thing that they're doing has intent and strategy behind it, so it all works together cohesively. These top competitors, they're doing something different than what these younger, immature athletes are doing. They built their lifestyle around what it is that they want to accomplish. Their nutrition is dialed in. They're spending the time to recover. They're making sure that they get adequate sleep. Their hydration is on point. They're doing all these small things that are comprehensive to get to this ultimate goal. So yeah, you could say that this is grinding 24/7 because everything revolves around success in this one thing. But it's not the grinding that you think. It's not just out there practicing all day, every day. You gotta remember, when you hear people say this, it will make you think that you're falling behind. That's the whole point. It's psychological. The people that are preaching this, they're not living it. Next, let's talk a little bit about the science of burnout. So you take this younger, immature athlete, they're grinding nonstop. They're actually practicing, putting in physical effort all the time. Well, this is what happens to your brain. Your brain just becomes absolutely smoked, pure exhaustion. It's not so much the overtraining that you hear people talk about, but it's more of the under recovery. And in reality, your body can really take a lot of training. It can take a pounding, but you have to balance that with recovery. And on top of that, whatever stressors that you have going on in your life, these are going to compound, because if you think about training is a stressor. And then you add on these other stresses that you have in your life, stress at home, stress from schoolwork, stress about money. All of these things compound. And if you're not recovering mentally from these things, it's only a matter of time before you either reach burnout or injury, or you just lose the love of the game. This large training volume with too little recovery, your body's gonna be flooded with cortisol. Over time, if you keep going through this cycle of just going and going without ever recovering, your memory, your focus, and your reaction time is gonna be nothing. So for athletes, this means your performance is done. It tanks. You can think about it like this domino effect. Research in sports psychology shows that athletes that are under higher stress loads, they're more susceptible to injury. So when you get these injuries that pile up, you're gonna have setbacks, and then you're gonna be feeling burnt out, but you're not gonna really know what to look for. So remember that burning out is not just feeling tired, it's this compounding effect. It's pushing too hard too long without the aspects of recovery. Ultimately, what ends up happening with athletes that stay in this cycle for far too long is that they cause this long-term damage to their body, the confidence, and then they end up falling out of love with the game. So last, let's talk about why grinding 24/7 has to include rest and recovery. As you mature as an athlete, you're gonna realize that rest isn't a weakness. It's actually the secret weapon that you have that most people aren't paying attention to. Just think about it. We talked about these young, young, immature athletes that all they're consumed with is just working hard 24/7 and actually putting in the physical effort and practice. And like I said, don't get me wrong, you do need to build the foundational skills to be successful in your sport. But if you do this, you're not leaving any time for mental rehearsal, visualization, focus on your nutrition, and all these other aspects that are required to help you have long-term success. Your muscles grow during recovery, not during the workout. Your reaction time sharpens when you're sleeping and getting enough rest, not when you're just grinding through constant exhaustion. So to break all this down, if you want to train at a level above everyone else in your field, I want you to think of this comprehensive approach that's broken into two parts. You got the physical side, and you got the mental side. For the physical side, we've got training hard. Yes, of course, we need to do that, but just as important as your effort in training is the effort in the recovery process. I'm talking about eating well, sleeping, nutrition, hydration, taking actual recovery days, and I'm talking about actually doing some maintenance work on your body. Not just laying on the couch doing nothing, but foam rolling, light mobility, some light stretching, maybe even some light movement. But the more that you just lay around and do nothing for a long period of time, the stiffer you're going to be the next day. Now let's talk a little bit about the mental side. You've got visualization and mental rehearsal. You could think of these as your training session. So just as you would go lift weights or practice the skills for your sport, this is the mental side of training. But just like in the gym, you're going to need some recovery. So there's also a strategy for that. I'm talking about decompression, where you just do nothing and let your mind rest. Meditation and doing something for fun that's more of a hobby that lets you get away from what it is that you're trying to do, your ultimate goal. It gives the mind a little bit of a break. Now, this is what I'm talking about when these best top performing athletes, they're grinding 24/7, but not in the way that you'd think. It's all done strategically, a very intelligent plan. Could you say that grinding 24/7 is the worst advice you'll ever hear? If you take it at face value, yes, absolutely dangerous. But if you look at it from this nuanced perspective, just like what we talked about, and you look at it as a comprehensive approach of designing a lifestyle around what it is that you want to accomplish, you can do this with anything that you pursue in life, not just sport. It's not always about the physical work process. You've got this recovery process that you also need to implement. Rest, recovery, hydration, nutrition, stretching, all of these things, they're all components of helping you dial into your craft. So as you can tell, I help athletes perform at the highest level, both physically and mentally. If that's something you're interested in, then DM me or reach out to me through the comments. If you want to start a conversation or you have any thoughts to add to this video, drop them in the comments below and I'd love to talk. Talk to you guys soon.